All right. Earlier on in the show, you mentioned the upcut and the downcut bit. What are the differences between the two, and when is the best time to use them?
So really, I think there's three different categories there, because you do have your upcut bit, right, and you do have your downcut bit, but then you have your compression router, and your compression router is both. That's both an upcut and a downcut bit. So for me, what I personally use my tools for, I use the 1/4-inch downtown Jenny, which is a 1/4-inch down shear bit, and the original Jenny bit, which is the compression router. I use that for 90% of all my stuff, for two reasons. One, I hate doing tool changes, and so I try to design all of my stuff around the same tool. But if you are cutting pockets, right, you'll typically want to use a down shear bit, because what's happening is, as you're cutting, the down shear portion of the tool geometry is forcing the fibers down into your material and is preventing the chip out. So if you have something that's previously painted, or if you're like working on something that's really prone to chip out, down shear bits are the way to go. That'll give you the nicest, cleanest finish on top. The upcut bits. So I have a lot of people using the upcut bits if they're doing like massive hog outs, if they're removing a bunch of material and they don't really care about what the finish is going to look like. They'll be using that. Or if they're cutting something like plastic, where you really want to get the chips up and out to make sure that you're not remelting the plastic, you'll use upcut bits for that. But my favorite is the compression router. And why that's my favorite and why it's my go-to is, so specifically with mine, the way I designed it, the minimum depth of cut required is an 1/8 inch. So if you're cutting a pocket and you're at least an 1/8 inch deep or deeper, I use my compression router because it gives me the nice clean top edge. It's really hard to explain this without like pictures or like the actual bit. So on the upcut portion, it's 0.1 of an inch. There's a transition point where it goes from your upcut to downcut. Mm-hmm. And where that transition point is, it's about 0.075 is where the down shear starts. And then there's an overlap section, and then it goes all downcut for the rest of the bit up, right? So the first section is an upcut, and then it transitions to a downcut, and then it's a downcut bit. So if you're cutting a pocket and you're at least an 1/8 of an inch or deeper, you're going to get the benefits of the down shear and not have chip out on the top of your whatever pocket you're cutting. But you'll also have a really nice finish in the bottom of your pocket, because the up flute or the up shear is getting all those chips up and out, and it just looks good. But that's not the main purpose of a compression router. I just designed mine that way because it worked really well for my process, and I didn't want to sand. So that's why I designed that one. But the other thing that's really cool is if you're cutting out a profile on, let's say, 3/4 inch plywood, when you plunge all the way through and you're doing that final pass, the upcut portion is pulling the fibers up into your material from the bottom. Sweet. And then your down shear portion is pushing the chips down from the top. So when you're doing a profile cut of whatever it is, you're going to get a really, really nice smooth finish on the top and bottom. So it's going to eliminate like 90% of your sanding. So that's what's really nice about the compression routers.
So I can actually understand what you was talking about, because I use a reverse tooth blade on a scroll saw. And that's very, very similar to what you're doing, because the bottom half goes up and the top half goes down. So that's how I was able to follow along with what you were saying.
So same exact concept, but just on an end mill,
on a spirally dangerous thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how you do it, Jamie. Association.
Finger here.
Yeah. So I hope that answered it well on kind of like the use case applications. Some of the other tools I make, and I'm really proud about this, and I can stab my flag in the ground. Like I developed the world's first down shear V-bit. And so that's been really, really awesome too, because a lot of guys who are making like flags, especially if they have a union that's already like pre-painted or whatever. They're using a down shear V-bit because they don't want to sand the material that they've already pre-painted, right? And then the other thing too is a lot of guys who are using like ore mask. So when you're cutting ore mask, you risk having lifting of the masking. So you want to use like a down shear cutter to make sure you get that nice crisp, clean cut on the top edge. Well, until a year and a half ago, they didn't make a down shear V-bit. And so I managed to figure out and made a down shear V-bit for guys who are using a lot of masking or using ore mask, so they'll get a nice clean cut and help prevent the lifting. And it's been awesome. It's probably been one of the most popular bits that I've made.
Awesome.
And I made that in the 30, the 60, and 90 degree. And they're all
Nice.
down shear
That's
bits.
awesome.
Nice.
Nice.
Yep.